Okay. I first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for accommodating the change in date. There's many things going on, and this makes it much easier to address the business of the Alliance over the rest of the month and into June. So I'd like to welcome all of you. We have a quorum, and begin by asking if everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting. And I would kindly accept a motion.
I'll move it.
In a second. Thank you.
Amy's not here. Marco Palco will be sitting in. She's got a vacation, scheduled vacation, so.
And let's turn to the CFO's report.
Okay. So in your packet is the financial statements through March 31st. On page 7 is the narrative for the financial statements. I'm going to jump right into the balance sheet, which is on page 9 of your packet. Total assets as of March 31st were about $13.5 million. The majority of that would be in cash. We had $10 million in bank accounts through the end of the month. One note, accrued expenses. Accrued expenses are pretty much the accrued revenue based on the revenue we receive from our agencies that we manage. And you can see all the amounts there. And just of one note, fixed assets have increased since last year, and the majority of that is in the projects in progress for the central warehouse. So as of March 31st, there was $2.4 million on the books for construction in progress. On the liability side, accounts payable is 106. That was just bills that were received that were paid after March 31st. And the big one is the deferred revenue, and that is funds that are for grants that we received that the grantees need to meet certain requirements before we can disperse the funds to them. Any questions on the balance sheet? Moving to page 16, the budget to actuals. Through March 31st, we had a deficit of $400,000 compared to a deficit budget of $150,000. So that's about $250,000. Actually, the majority of that was because of the timing of grant revenues. So on the revenue side, we had a $341,000 of revenue compared to a budgeted $3.3 million. Looks like it's a big miss, but it's not. You can see on the expense side, a few of those income items are matched with an expense item at the same time. So with that, the expenses will be equally off as well. We did not receive an ARPA grant revenue that we did budget for in the first quarter, and there was some expenses that were lower on the ACBDC and shovel ready. Those are one-on-one reimbursements. With that, that's about $250,000. So that's about the miss. On the expense side, just noting a couple items that were over budget were legal and professional fees, and that's primarily for the central warehouse project with monitoring and legal fees associated with that. The offset there was actually salaries were under budget by about $93,000. So that's how we got to the $250,000 for the budgeted difference. Any questions there?
Was the ARPA grants, that's for the warehouse demolition project?
Yes.
Okay.
So we did pay out a bill in April, and that we did receive ARPA funds for that. And
Is there any reason for the delay? Is there progress billing, or is it more just it hasn't come in yet?
It is progress billing that typically with the majority of the money is something called Restore New York, which comes from ESD, and that money is usually paid upon project completion. We worked out a deal with the county and the state to get progress payments, quarterly progress payments. So that's what we're working on right now. But it's a very laborious process, and Amy and Mark have got a standing working group between the contractor, the county, the Alliance, and ESD to get these payments.
So you see, I've dealt with them, and sometimes it's tough to get the quarterly payment versus the annual payment from them.
That was the biggest.
Yeah.
The fact that we got quarterly.
Right. Right.
They're not used to doing.
We'd love to get monthly, but
They're used to annuals, I think.
yeah,
That's-
100%.
yeah.
And they like to stick to that too.
Yes.
So,
But they understood that, this is gonna happen. They've been great so far, We'll see as it goes along, but.
But that's not gonna slow down anything what we're trying to do with the
No.
building, right?
No.
Okay.
If there's no questions, I'll move on to item B, the review of the investment portfolio.
You gonna talk about some of the budget issues separately, or?
Yes, and item number C, the recurring revenue.
Yeah.
So the investment portfolio, as of March 31st, typically we invested in CDs. We have since moved our funding over to M&T Bank. We started the process through the first quarter. The reason for the move was KeyBank wasn't meeting our needs with both technology and investment products. So M&T was able to get us into treasuries and other investment vehicles that would earn us higher interest rates than what we're currently earning. And just there was some technology, case in point with our credit cards. KeyBank did not have an online portal for credit cards. We did not know if we didn't get a statement in the mail, we had to beg and plead to get a statement from KeyBank. So that was, they have other products that they could upsell. But the main, technology, M&T, we feel provides a better fit for our needs. So with that, Amy is planning on working on getting the $6 million back into treasury bills, which right now, as of the last, was about 3.5% yield. So that would be faring better than our CDs that were in the 2% range. Moving on to recurring revenue. So as everyone knows, the big portion of our revenue here is recurring revenue streams. Within that, we have our 5 partner agencies that we deal with, but now we're down to 4. So we did lose AFLA, that got moved over to the county. So with that is about a $21,000 monthly revenue that will not be coming to the agency anymore. So that was about $250,000 per year. We did mitigate the expenses by transitioning 3 staff members who were primarily, their role was to work with AFLA. They are now on AFLA's payroll, so we have expense savings there, and we did eliminate 1 position due to overstaffing for that. We also have IDA and CRC revenues, as you can see in your financial packet. CRC is about $166,000 per year, and the IDA about $333,000. We staff there for the economic development projects. We feel, based on projects coming in, and because they were within boundaries, either the city or other agencies that had IDA, but staff has put in significant time onto these projects, and/or property that was owned by the county was involved with these projects. We feel, at least on the IDA side, we've lost about $1.5 to $2 million in potential fee revenue to our IDA, the county IDA, that we can use for economic development. And then on the CRC, staff put almost 100% into a project that ended up going to the city CRC. And that ended up being about $209,000 of lost revenue to the county CRC.
Since that's happened, and Mike McLaughlin's been involved in this on our behalf, there is an agreement with the city now on, or I guess I should say, a policy direction about how this will work, whether the city or the county IDA will be the lead on it. And I think we're in a better shape. Just briefly, any properties that the county owned or the county originated will be done through the county IDA. Under certain circumstances, fees can be shared. For example, any of the projects done on the campus of the college, at former campus of the College of St. Rose, will go through the Albany County IDA and CRC, as well as any properties, for example, the Albany Bus Terminal, which is a property we own. Those will also go through the county IDA and CRC. but, as Mark said, we've lost, we forfeited over $2 million in fee income for county economic development, some projects that we originated or worked on and got nothing at all in return for. So, such is life, right? Mike, anything you want to add to that? Or?
No.
And then the last, obviously, revenue piece is the hotel tax that we do receive. We did receive a payment of $147,000 in April. Note that we did budget $1 million for hotel tax. That we had thought included the hotel tax as well as Airbnb tax that we thought would start in the month of January, has yet to start. So we feel that could be a budget miss of about $500,000 potentially, depending on how those numbers come in, how quickly the Airbnb tax gets paid to the county and reimbursed to all the agencies.
So Mark, the so-called Airbnb tax, that's scheduled to start when?
I believe it was passed yesterday.
It was.
It was? So does it start, I don't know when the legislation, when it was, so that was.
There's a little bit of a window where they're building the program. I believe it's September 1st, around then.
Excuse me, by the way, I am embarrassed. I did not introduce Thomas DeBose, who's here representing Chairwoman Joanne Cunningham in Caitlin O'Brien's absence. So I just want, Tom, your official title is counsel to the chair, Tom?
That's correct.
Yeah, sorry about that, Tom.
Yep. And then within that, we do receive Albany County funding, which typically was $500,000. It did get reduced for 2026, and it was primarily based because of the increased hotel tax and Airbnb tax that we were projected to get. Any questions on the financials or the recurring revenue?
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's feeling well, getting ready for spring. We had to close our office last week because a respiratory bug went through the whole office, but we're back up on our feet now and back at work. First, again, a lot going on. Two active projects that we have right now are the central warehouse and the intermodal bus station at the former McDonald's site. And I'll introduce each of those projects separately. First, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Smith, Senior VP for Real Estate, to give us an update on where we are on 106 South Pearl Street. And Jeremy will also go through the resolution for the design build RFP. Our in-house counsel, Tom Owens, had a personal conflict and couldn't be here today, sends his apologies. But we can handle just about any questions that come up on that. So Jeremy, you want to?
Good morning, everybody. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for having
Is this
me.
your first meeting?
This is my first meeting, so,
geez.
some of you I already
Seems
know,
like
but,
seems like he's been here forever.
oh, you're just so 106 South Pearl,
Hey, Jeremy, just before you start into it, I apologize. Why don't you just tell everybody what you've done in the past?
sure. I come to the Alliance from the Capital District Transportation Authority, CDTA. There I was the director of capital projects as well as facilities, so oversaw all the facilities that CDTA owns, including on the street, and oversaw all of the capital projects that were done within the buildings and out on the streets as well. As you can tell, I'm one of the ones that had the respiratory issue. I'm still recovering, so I apologize for my voice. Prior to that, I was the city manager for the city of Waterville. At that time, I had a lot of interactions with Albany County, specifically with Mike, doing a lot of work, mostly in the shared services realm. So I have a lot of experience in with Albany County. Born and raised in Waterville, so I'm an Albany County guy, although I don't live in Albany County right now. I still bleed Albany County. So again, pleasure to be here and to be working with the Alliance on these major projects, which are really going to be a big change, specifically the two today in the city of Albany. So first, 106 South Pearl. It was determined quite a while back that this property would be a great location for a new intercity bus terminal for the operations of Greyhound, Flixbus, as well as Trailways and the ancillary bus companies like Peter Pan and so on there. So a working group had been put together about a year ago to start looking at the feasibility of this. That working group included State DOT, the City of Albany, CDTA, the Alliance, and a few others. And through that working group, an RFP was put together, a request for proposals for a design bid, or excuse me, a design build on the site. That RFP was released in March. We received proposals in April. We received 2 proposals. At that time, both of those firms were brought in and interviewed right here. A team of about 6 folks were a part of that, including 2 board members. The interviews went very well, 2 completely different paths to get to completion on this. But through that, one of the firms really stood out as the top firm. And after the interviews and the scoring, once again, it was quite obvious that one firm specifically was the better firm for this project. It is a full design build project, which means that the design and the building take place at the same time, a bit of overlap there. That certainly helps to expedite the timeline for the project. And so that is a great advantage to getting this done and getting it done quickly. I don't know that I need to comment on what the current state of the bus station is. I think we all know. Just one word to use, I guess, is deplorable. And so not going to keep going. So as quickly as we can get folks that are coming into Albany into a better location, the better off that we will all be.
You know, there is one part that is kind of lost in all this. The existing bus station was owned by Greyhound. Greyhound is now owned by a company called Flick. It's a big, Flick's a big European transportation company. Having one bus company own the terminal where other bus carriers come into did not work out well. It was like a bad marriage. Trailways got kicked out, moved into a trailer down by the river.
Literally true.
They are still in today. So, you know, we made a decision here, this working group, that it would be best if the new bus terminal was owned by a third party. Fortunately, CDTA has had this experience. They run the Rensselaer train station over in Rensselaer, and their counterparts in other parts of the state run these intermodal bus terminals around the state. Jeremy and some of the guys went up and looked at the facility up in Syracuse, I believe it was, and so that and the bus companies even agreed to this, that it's better if none of them own it, and that's how we got to this kind of mutual.
So the group that stood out is basically 3 teams. It's Wayne Schaff Construction in Rensselaer. They are a design builds firm. You know, if you drive around the region right now, you can see their signs up in multiple places where they're doing design build projects. But one of the key factors with this team are the engineer and the architect that they brought in to work on the design aspect of this. The designers, Labella Associates. Labella has a specific transit department within there. They are fantastic, and they are a group that has worked with CDTA for the past several years, the folks that work for Labella. Doug Teeter specifically was the engineer of record for all of CDTA's bus rapid transit projects over the last 7 years. And the architect, Sawinski Sullivan, out of New Jersey, they in particular are transit architects. So specific to transit and to transit operations, they have designed multiple intermodal facilities throughout the Northeast. Kelly Freeman from them, again, having worked with CDTA as the lead architect on their projects for the last 7 years. So that is part of what stood out. Certainly in the interview, you could tell their experience and their professionalism, and the scores definitely showed that it was nothing short of a landslide for what it was. With that being said, I do want to comment on the other firm, the Hamlin Design Group that came in. They had a fantastic proposal with some very neat ideas, outside of the box ideas, but their proposal did not meet the expectations of the request for proposals, and therefore that is one of the main reasons why their scores were so low. They just did not meet the criteria that was provided for
Yeah,
scoring.
but basically, they came in, instead of a design build, they came in with a design bid build. So that would have pushed the project out another full year. And as you all know, everybody is very anxious to get this project up and running as quickly as possible. And as you also know, it's been identified in the governor's so-called CAP plan for downtown Albany as a signature gateway project for funding.
So all of that basically brings us here to today and to the resolution that the board has in front of them. Two resolutions in front of you. The first is the environmental, the seeker resolution that has a negative declaration, and then second is the award to the wing shaft team.
So the resolution's on page 18. It's always fun when Tom Horn is here to explain the whole thing.
I could take a feeble attempt at it. Certainly no substitution for our great attorney, Tom Owens. But basically what we're declaring here is that we've got a negative declaration for the secret finding on this, that there's no, major impacts that'll be generated by this project. And then the second resolution is the actual awarding of the contract to the Wayne Shaft team. So, if anybody's got any questions on those, we can answer those. I would respectfully ask if we could defer any discussion on funding to executive session, because that is not completely buttoned up yet, given we are in discussions with the county and the state, but those are still kind of pending.
So it's an unlisted action,
Correct.
That's correct.
and we could have done the short form, but you were conservative and you did the long form, EAF.
That's right. Talking to Tom, we want to be a more conservative approach and do the full EAF. That's
Yeah.
right.
And then the whole thought process is, as far as impacts, we had a bus station 500 yards away. We're having a bus station again.
500 feet away.
The other one's gonna be shut down, this one's gonna be open, so really, there's no major impacts, if any at all, to the area. There might be some slight change in traffic patterns, but very insignificant. So that's why we're comfortable going ahead and doing the secret resolution, I would assume, right?
Correct.
We're not
Okay.
introducing a new use or
Right.
an activity into the area. We're just moving it 500 feet southwest, essentially. So.
And we still have the permitting and approval process that we still have to go through.
Correct. And another benefit is that, being a quasi-county-owned facility, we will be going through the county building department for our approvals and so on. And, again, we've been working very closely with the city of Albany. Brad Glass, the director of planning for the city, has been great. He's really been very helpful and constructive. There are going to be some issues with the city, traffic safety. Those of you who know Billy Trudeau, who runs traffic safety for the police department, Billy will have to be talked to and work, making sure that there are no major traffic impediments caused by this. But Brad has already taken the early steps with Billy and kind of alerted him to the project. So I think we're in good shape to go.
I would say, Brett, if there's a project that's in your wheelhouse, this is it.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the way of, just so everybody understands, the construct here is what we're looking for this project to be, long-term is an intermodal bus station. That we have local buses, CDTA, bringing people down to the station, whereupon they could embark upon their trips to points in the distance through, Adirondack, Greyhound, Peter Pan, and whoever else, whatever other bus carriers might be there. The scenario right now is that we, the Alliance, you will finance and build the facility. The plan is right now to enter into a master lease with CDTA for the operation of it. CDTA in turn would enter into leases with whatever bus carriers are there and retail activities there, and there would also be presumably revenue generated from parking. With all of that said and done, these are likely going to have to be subsidized. And this is not, it's like every other transportation project. Transit projects do not pay for themselves. I don't care whether you're talking the MTA down in New York City, the BART system in San Francisco, they just never pay for themselves. Fortunately, in New York State, there is a stream of funding support for these types of things. And Jeremy, STOA,
STOA, yes.
Surface Transit
Operating assistance.
Operating assistance, thank you. So CDTA is talking to the state about securing this so-called STOA funding to fill in whatever gaps, whatever funding gaps there may be, and those discussions are ongoing. So, there are a lot of moving parts here. The last one I'll mention before you bring this to the vote is that, would you pass out the public notice for the bus terminal? We're holding 2 public meetings to get feedback from the community on the design elements of the terminal. The first one will be happening. I'm glad you appreciate that, Mike.
I do.
The first will be happening tomorrow night at the Giffen Elementary School, right up on South Pearl and Morton. Thank you, Internet. You can see some of the, these are design elements of a new station, what it might look like. And, one of the things that we've been directed and encouraged and cajoled by the county executive and the governor's office is that they really want this to be an architecturally significant location. They want a high design aesthetic here. Something that'll really be, will welcome people into the city as a gateway into the city. And, so that's the kind of thing that we're going to try to solicit input from the community on. How do we do that while remaining, connected to the community at large? Which is not an easy feat, but, we know how to do this kind of stuff. This is a very similar process. Same consultants we're using as we used for the College of St. Rose planning process. And, there are some, there is a heavy emphasis on speed with getting this done and a design aesthetic that is suitable for, the governor's vision and the county executive's vision for the city of Albany. So, and all of you are welcome to, any and all of you are welcome to come. We will have, the sheriff's department will be at our public hearing. Sheriff's department will have a permanent installation in the bus terminal, to assure the safety and security of the traveling public. There'll be a retail operation in there. The bus terminals, the bus operators, Jeremy, I think will both be at the public hearing, both Adirondack Trails and Greyhound will have representatives at the public hearing. And of course, as will our design team, Wayne Shaft, and their team. So, things are moving very quickly. I know this is a lot to swallow at one meeting, but I feel the foot, or maybe that is the hand of the county executive in my lower back pushing us along. Of all of his virtues, patience is not one of them.
Confirmed.
And Mike would, I know, dispute that. but, there's a great degree of urgency here to get this done and to show some progress for this wonderful initiative the governor and the county executive has made happen for the city of Albany. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. You want to?
So, as someone who's been in the Capital Region for the last 46 years, and who's picked up people at the old bus station, and who didn't want to touch anything, this is an enormous step forward, as far as I can see, for this community, and just the way the train station was so valuable to the Capital Region. I hope this turns out to be the same. So is there a motion? Oh, thank you. All right. Second. All right. Additional comments or questions?
So are we, which resolution are we?
We're doing the first. Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Is there any board member that is opposed? Thank you.
Record should reflect the unanimous vote.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, and now the second resolution, the awarding of this contract. Is there a motion to approve this? Thank you. Second? Thanks, Mike. Again, comments or questions? Then, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And again, it's a unanimous vote of the directors here today.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Alan points out a good point here, and one of the issues that we've had, you may remember the last meeting where we had a couple of community activists at our meeting. But, the way I look at this is a social justice and a social equity issue. Those of us who travel through the train station or the airport, have a very positive experience. It really speaks well to what our community is, particularly, I don't know if any of you've seen the behind the scenes renovations that have been done at the airport. It's going to be spectacular. And you gave them an $85,000 grant for an art installation up there, which is really going to be a magnificent thing for the Arts Fund last year. But those of us in the community that travel through the bus station have a very disproportionate and lower traveling and customer experience. Alan was being very generous by the experience in explaining the experience going through the bus terminal. It is horrific. It is open drug use. There are vagrants and unhoused people sleeping in the terminal, outside the terminal. It is just not the way we want to see people come and leave from our city. And what the bus companies tell us is their clientele is most of their clientele is made up of people in the lower socioeconomic strata. So, there's no reason why they shouldn't have as positive a travel experiences people traveling through our train station and through our airport. And this, I believe, will do this not only by the way it looks, but by the way we and hopefully CDTA will manage it. Having, 24-hour security here, law enforcement presence, and a redesigned terminal that'll be, something that's responsive to the traveling public, but as well as having access to the pedestrian traffic along South Pearl Street. This is going to be designed in a way that will, invite people to come into the terminal. There'll be a retail offering there that people can go in there and buy things, and that's important to that community down there. So we're excited about this, and we're going to make this happen. So I think anything else on that, Chairman?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
Central Warehouse.
yeah, so Central Warehouse is moving along. I'll turn this over to Jeremy. But we are very soon going to see the initiation. You will see the start of actual physical demolition, something that will be visually identifiable. Most of the work that's happened so far and most of the money that will be spent, more than half of the money that we spend on bringing this building down was on the environmental remediation. Most, if not all of which was asbestos. There was some back and forth we went through with the Department of Labor to get that in place, but we finally did that, and that is continuing to go on, but we got a little bit of a break on a variance that we asked for so that we could start doing some of the demolition, and Jeremy can talk about this, while we're still doing the asbestos remediation, which originally they didn't want to see happen, but we've been working with the governor's office and DOL and ESV, and you know, everybody wants to see this building come down and do it in a way that's you know, safe for the community, but that gets the building down. So Jeremy, why don't you give everybody an update?
Yeah, so as Kevin was alluding to, Gramercy has already completed the abatement of the first and second floors, clean results from there. And so what that does is that opens the door for that rail spur to be able to begin the demolition on that. So floors 1 and 2 have completed abatement. And so Gramercy has moved up to the top floor. So they're on the 11th floor now, will be working their way down. The first part of that was to set up for a hoist to go up to be able to remove the materials that need to come out of the building. So on the northwest side of the building, if you get a look at it, you'll see openings within the walls of each of that. A hoist will be brought up and it will continue to bring down the environmental materials that need to be removed. Once that is complete, that is the first step. Once that is complete, then the demolition of the building can begin. So that is a long process, a few months of getting that out, and floor by floor, it has to be done to get clean
Jeremy,
results.
most of the asbestos was on 1 and 2, right?
1 and 2, because of the way that everything kind of trickles down off of the building as well. But where the base of the building is where most of the materials were. So that's why it took much longer, as well as a harsh winter, you know, caused some issues there that put a little bit of delay in that, but they are, you know, back rocking and rolling up on the 11th floor. It's an interesting amount of work to be able to get all of the equipment up to the 11th floor to be able to do it. It was quite a sight to see as they were doing that. And so now as they work their way down, they can move a little bit more rapidly as they work their way down. So at the same time that is happening, the abatement from floors.
So yeah, just if you just for a second, so there are 2 train trestles. If you're thinking of the southeastern side of the warehouse, the side that's closest to 787 and the Corning Preserve, there are 2 train trestles that bypass that 787. One of which is the Amtrak main line that goes right past the building. That will be unaffected, and we've gone through excruciating lengths with, and again, Mike McLaughlin was very helpful in helping us navigate some of that work with Amtrak, tough organization to deal with. Understandably, they've got a lot vested in it. The Amtrak line is extremely close to the building. I mean, it is right there. But the other train trestle that transverses that area goes directly into the second floor
Yes.
of the central warehouse. It is a, you know, steel structure that is pretty massive. They will, you know, torch it, or as they say, burn it off on the end going into the warehouse, and it's sitting on some cement pedestals on the other side. So that'll be a noticeably visual demolition. You know, they'll cut it off, they'll have cranes lifting it off, and it'll be a noticeable visual image of something that was there that's no longer going to be there. They will also be putting in what they call needle beams on the southern side of the building, which is the one directly facing the Amtrak line. And upon those needle beams will be the scaffolding that they'll be building up and ultimately using to start the demolition work of the warehouse.
So the positive of that track is that it puts the project on 2 critical path tracks. to allow two things to be happening at once. So while the abatement from 11 to 3 gets done, at that same time, the track can be removed and demolished. And then as soon as that is demoed, it can move right into demoing the building. So we're going to see a lot of external activity starting to take place between the hoist being done and the abated materials being removed from 11 to 3, while at the same time, we start to see the track be removed. And then once the abatement and the track is done, then we will start seeing the warehouse itself start to come down. You'll see it come down, I call it lipstick removal because it has about a 45-degree angle, similar to lipstick. So you'll see it come down in that way. The reason for that is because of how close, as Kevin said, how close the track is to the building. We need to make sure to take down what is closest to the track first, very cautiously. And then once that is done, it can move at a much more rapid pace because then it does not put any issues into the Amtrak track. So
There is a clearly delineated and identified zone of influence for Amtrak purposes that require this kind of, slanted demolition, but, it's gonna come down.
Is Amtrak gonna be on site when this is going on?
Oh, yeah, and we're paying for it. We had to put $900,000 into an escrow account, into an Amtrak escrow account, which they will draw down upon to offset their expenses for doing exactly that. Flagmen, linemen, vehicles that will be on the track while the demolition is going down. Gramercy thinks that it will likely happen in the evening hours when train traffic is lesser than during the daylight hours. But, that's subject to some negotiation with the train lines also.
Because that line will still be active, right?
Oh, yeah.
It has to, yeah.
Yeah, that's all traffic going west and north, goes right past our warehouse.
And although it's not our project, there's a lot more going on with that rail, those tracks that are right there.
Right.
That's right.
Around the same time frame. So
Yeah,
there will be other activity going on there, but that is not our activity or our project.
The whole, was
Livingston
Livingston Avenue Bridge is being rebuilt. And then tracks will be diverted onto that, and the old Livingston Avenue Bridge will be demolished, similar to how they did the Tappan Zee into the Cuomo Bridge.
The only thing older than that.
I'm sorry?
The only thing older than the Central Warehouse is that bridge.
Is it really?
I'm just joking, but
I hope not.
two oldest things in there.
Yeah. So as Jeremy says, though, there's a lot of activity in that corridor, and it, makes the logistics of these things a little more complicated. Any questions for Jeremy on the Central Warehouse? So we've held 2 public hearings on the Central Warehouse, not a single word of opposition at all. It's usually, when are you gonna get down? How quickly is it gonna come down? A few of the local merchants are concerned about road closures, which there will be some, particularly as we bring down this train trestle. You've got that cannabis store right across the street from the Central Warehouse, and they're concerned about their access for their clients. And but things are going pretty well. We have an independent, we have a directly hired air monitor on the site, Alpine, who's one of the bigger air monitoring services involved in the project. They don't work for Gramercy; they have to be separately hired by us. Jeremy keeps in touch with them, and so far so good. No breaches, or all of this is, what do they call it, negative air or something.
Yeah.
And that everything is enclosed in plastic. People are wearing hazmat suits when they go in there to do the demolition, and everything is bagged and carted off to a separate warehouse licensed to take asbestos debris. The regular C&D stuff goes over to Dunn landfill.
Yeah.
So, anything else on Central Warehouse?
No. Again, for someone that's lived in the capital region, not my entire life, but for the last 40 years, what an improvement this will be.
Yes.
Al, that you want to say?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. As we shared earlier, the legislature passed a resolution regarding the Altech site, transfer the ownership to Albany County IDA. We've also negotiated an updated liability letter, I'm sure you remember, with DEC to include the protection of both the Alliance and the IDA from any liability for unidentified site contaminations possibly found in the future, which is very helpful. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is also developing the site management plan for the Altech site and has shared their 60% completed version. They're also waiting to complete the wetland report, which should be available soon. The final plan to guide the safe, healthy, and DEC approved development of the site is expected in the autumn of 2006. Also, given the need to have access to power for potential manufacturers on the site, which has been identified to be up to 60 megawatts, we're now working with National Grid to begin to design a new substation to help make the site truly shovel-ready. McFarland Johnson, the site engineering we chose, continues to collect data for the site's seeker review, generic environmental impact statement, and master plan targeting the best use applications for the site. And on the funding side, the Alliance was awarded a $500,000 Fast New York matching grant from New York State's ESD for the current environmental studies, engineering, site design that will lead the Altech site to be shovel-ready. And that is a quick summary of the Altech site. Are there any questions?
Let me just ask Sandy Mathis, who's been a consultant. Sandy's done this, he's lived this, and he's been very involved in this project, working with Clayton, but particularly with our attorneys and some outside consultants on things like power. And Sandy's come up with I think a brilliant strategy for how to respond to the power needs on this site, because there are several ways this cat can be skinned. And what we want to do is get this site to a point where we can start marketing it. So, that's what I rely on Sandy for is, Sandy, what do we got to do to get this thing, get this pig prettied up and ready for market, right?
Somebody to buy it and move in and create some jobs. I just want to build a little bit on Clayton's great summary report. First off, economic development's fun, isn't it? You guys enjoying it? It's a good time. Mr. Rosa does for a living. That's got to be exciting. So energy, as Kevin said. So what we're going to do is, because the energy world has changed drastically over the last 12 to 18 months of how you access it, what's available, the whole process. So what we're dealing with now with anything over 10 megawatts, which this site, as Clayton said, has capacity of up to about 60 megawatts. And that's the deal changer for an industrial site. So you go through the ISO process, you apply, you spend a lot of money, but basically that process, which includes also a full year review by your utility, I always say it's 5 years of your life and $500,000. And that's before you start investing in the infrastructure. Maybe you can get it to 4, but certainly between 4 and 5 years. So I have to compliment Katie Newcomb. Many of you know Katie, who now heads up economic development and government affairs for National Grid. She was our good friend here when she ran CEG. And she had Amanda Petullo's job before that, which is kind of the point person. They have been spectacular to deal with. Katie, we approached Katie and said, we really want to engage discussions and marketing at the site sooner than that. So what we've worked on, and I should have a final version, and I got to tell you, it wouldn't be happening with the bureaucracy in Grid if it weren't for Katie, is a under 10 megawatt strategy. So we don't have to deal with the ISO. So we are going to be moving forward on a dual approach. We're not abandoning the ISO process, but we're going to have a whole scope from National Grid. That's what we're dealing with. And that will deliver, quite frankly, what companies and the site selectors that we deal with need to know to keep you alive as a site. How much power can get there? What's the time frame? And how much is it going to cost? So that will be part of the result. Plus, what can you start ordering now? Because you're looking at building an owner substation. And a lot of that equipment can be 3 to 4 years out. So it's moving on. So that will probably take half the time and substantially less resources. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be the first in the whole state to do this approach, but Grid is very committed to it. So that's good news. So I'm hoping when we get, I'll update you on the seeker and the GEIS as well, that this organization could start to aggressively market that site in 6 to 9 months and have answers to the questions that you need. Because that process, having lived through it multiple times, it's like making a sports team. You just want to survive each cut. They're looking, the site selector community, to eliminate you as a site, not promote you. So you want to be the last standing if you can. So it's about answering questions, because when you can't answer it, you're not in the game the next day. So feeling really good about energy still. There's always obstacles, but with Kevin's leadership in the organization, we're just going to keep moving our way through it. And I really feel good about the under 10 megawatt strategy. It gets us in the game quicker.
And you want to talk about some of the, kind of very early outside interest in the site?
Yeah, we just had one this week, in fact. Jeremy and I and Clayton were there, and it was the rail, that the attractiveness of that rail, and quite frankly, a site that can accommodate an industrial use. I don't see a really pretty company going there. You're not going to have a workforce here that wants to take hiking trails through the brownfield. That is a hardcore industrial site. It's isolated. It's got great water sewer infrastructure, power infrastructure. Transportation is going to have to be dealt with depending on in and out access. But we had that just this week. And overall, the discussions we've had with companies that chemical manufacturing, more heavier manufacturing, the site does accommodate. And we're looking at average, still being worked on by your outstanding legal team, 38 acres of shovel-ready land at the end. And you can accommodate, and I'm trying to think, we're over 1 million square feet that can be accommodated in that. So very attractive in the market so far with the initial feelings. So I can tell you, I'm excited about the prospect of getting it on the street and having some real discussions. Because again, it's about the quality of the jobs. It's not let's just fill it up for no matter what. It's about the quality of the company, the quality of the jobs, and the economic development to the community. So,
this was a state designated Superfund site that, we negotiated this liability agreement with. We agreed that the site would be capped, not excavated. DEC agreed with us that the best thing for the environment is to leave all the really bad stuff in the ground there and cap it and develop it on top of that, and have monitoring wells. If anything perks up, we'll deal with them as they go along. They also agreed to let this property be in the brownfield tax credit program, which is another attractive element for a potential development coming here. So this is a site that is not an easy one to do, but it's as Sandy's talking about. There's so many positive elements to this. I would say, I can't off the top of my head think of another site in Albany County that has this combination.
I would tell you the entire region is nothing like this. So once we could just check some more boxes, that's when it hits the street, it will be very competitive. And even this week's discussion with the company, a company that does this is not intimidated by the brownfield, sees the tax credits as value. Those are the companies that you're talking about here. There was not one concern expressed on the site visit and the discussion. Clayton did a great job outlining where we were in the process with DEC, and there was not one concern. You know pretty quickly when you're showing a site whether it's good. When you get the quick, well, what's the next one look like? We didn't get any of that. It was very, very positive, I thought, and encouraging. So let's just talk about lead agency, because that's really the next shooter. Lead agency is critical. Right now, we are advocating that, I believe it's the IDA, is going to be the lead agency. The town of Colony has challenged that. So that's now before the Department of Environmental Conservation Commissioner. Whenever there's a conflict and who wants to be lead agency, the commissioner at DEC makes that decision. It is a critical next step, because lead agency drives time frame and cost. And our legal team, Dean Summers and of course Tom Owens, are outstanding. They've done a great very informative letter. I think the relationship that we have through Dean and with Kevin, with the enforcement folks at DEC, the fact that this is a brownfield redevelop, it's kind of a showcase example where the department can say, yeah, we spent $20 million to clean this up, but now it's gonna have another life that has public value. So when that hits, that's when we can really go to the last step, which is the generic impact statement and seeker. That's been ongoing. McFarland Johnson's been incredibly responsive. We're doing regular calls with them. The IDA is going to be very involved in this very quickly, but there's several things, including traffic, that's being done. That process, lead agency is the next step to happen to bring that home. So hopefully in the next week or two, Kevin will get a great letter from the commissioner saying, go, your lead agency. And then you're looking at rail's going to be evaluated. So it's that process again is the evaluation of any potential impacts, where you just did the seeker where the bus garage wasn't going to have any impacts. Well, this is going to have some impacts, the outtake. It's going to be traffic, it might be noise, it might be visual. Evaluation of the infrastructure that's going to be available, that's going to be able to accommodate that kind of development. Energy, all those things. So that's probably early 27. You're looking at that being completed. And the value that, and Rich could certainly support this, cannot be overstated. How important having a shovel-ready and seeker completed with thresholds of development by sector and scale. So that's the power of this process to be invented. Now, we'll be doing that in partnership with the town of Colony that wants to be lead agency. So we're going to be working very sensitive, very aggressively to continue to work to build that relationship, be ready, be sensitive to their site plan approval process, try to incorporate the maximum of that, leaving very few remaining issues when we come in for a site plan approval for a company. But that's sitting out there. You know, I don't, it's not a perfect world there, but we're committed to do it under Kevin's leadership, that has to be a respectful interaction. And
Sadie, why do they want to be lead, not to?
Lead agency is all about control.
Got it.
So they have a very extensive site plan. A lot of planning boards or town boards like to be in control of the process. But that very fact that they won't control the process slows it down. And what that results in is a doubling of your cost. And because you'll have to set up a retainer for their engineering professionals to review our engineering information.
Right.
So there's several reasons why that lead agency is such a critical decision. So hopefully that'll work out, and then we'll aggressively bring this home to the committee. Anything else, sir?
Any questions on?
Great.
Thanks, Sid.
Yep.
So next item on the agenda is the management transition of our staffing of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. I'm pleased to say that's going along very smoothly. We've been working very closely with Mike Lally, who is the new and improved CEO of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. Jasmine Higgins sits on the board of it, and Sarah and Antoinette have been supporting the transition. I think that's going pretty well from what we hear. The first meeting of the Pine Hills Land Authority will be on the 14th?
Thursday.
What time?
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah, the 14th. And, that'll be the first one without us being involved in it. I will still be coming to you on projects relating to the campus. And this is one of the reasons we had to step back, that we will be representing developers and project sponsors on the campus to get support. And it would be awkward and probably an out-and-out conflict if we were to be staffing the authorities' activities at the same time representing outside developers. The major thing with the Pine Hills Land Authority is that they will be issuing, I believe, very soon, the RFP for the 55+ development on the campus, and as was called for in their plan. And I'm sure that there will be calls upon the Alliance, the IDA, and the CRC for support of those projects. So we'll still be working with them, but I think so far, this has been a great transition, despite the loss of some income for us. But, it's the right thing to do, and it makes sense for everything else. Mike, anything you'd like to add about that?
No, I mean, just big thank you to Kevin, whole team. As to the transition, I think Kevin was correct. That it's been rather smooth. Anne Marie Salmon here from our office has also been instrumental in making it smooth. So hopefully it's seamless as can be. Mike Lally is certainly not an improvement, but maybe consistent.
Newer and improved, younger, newer.
Perhaps newer, yes, perhaps newer.
The other thing, Anne Marie has rolled up her sleeves, and I got to give her credit. She's actually even gotten involved with Mark and Amy about how to get people loaded up on the ADP payroll system, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So, Anne Marie, thank you. So anyway, that's all going well. There is one last project that's not on the agenda here that I'd just like to make mention of. You may have heard that the county executive called on the Alliance to do a traffic rerouting study in the Queens Ravenna area. There are heavy, supersized trucks that run down the main drag in Ravenna and Queens, and basically, as they say, rattle the china out of the china closet. We've been working with our in-house consultant, Bowler Engineering, who brought on Creighton Manning, who specializes in these traffic rerouting studies. And I don't know, Steve, you want to talk a little bit about where we are? I think you've got the hearing notice. Is the hearing notice here for that too?
It is, yes. Yes, we have a first community workshop down at the elementary school right there in the village of Queens at the end of the month. Creighton Manning does a great job at these transportation community workshops. They're the best way to describe them, they're more like a cocktail hour where there's boards set up. You come in, you talk with specialists at the boards, then you can mingle and get information. It's not a formal presentation to a group of people where they can all get riled up, and it's more one-on-one conversations, and then people can kind of come and go over the course of the couple hours of the night. They don't have to stay there the whole time. So it's been a great format. I've worked with Creighton Manning on these before, so we should get some good turnout. I know we're going to get a lot of turnout for this. There's a lot of.
They've done work down in this area already.
Absolutely, yes. They've been working with some of the, some of the facilities in the area in the past, so they got a good understanding. We've looked at a lot of different options for routing it and started talking individually some of the stakeholders in the area to try to find a solution to kind of get, at least minimize some of that truck traffic through Main Street. But it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it. There's no easy answer. If there was, somebody would have found it a long time ago. Yeah.
This is one of those things that, if you take the traffic off the main street in Queens, it's got to go somewhere else.
Yep.
And the folks in New Baltimore have made it very clear to the county executive and his team that they don't want it down there. It's Greene County, so, those Greene County guys, you gotta be, or it goes up north through Bethlehem. And of course, they're not wildly enthusiastic about having the truck rerouted that way. There is a possible alternative location that could go through some industrial property down there, but all that's got to be worked through. This process that Steve talked about, and come up with the best possible solution that we can come. But I think in my experience and some of the staff experience, the reluctancy to develop in that part of our county is limited by the reality, the perception of this issue almost exclusively. That truck traffic, and it really is serious. I sat down at a meeting on Main Street in Ravenna and Queens, and when these aren't just regular dump trucks. These are these super, I don't know what the hell they call them, but these super dump trucks that are filled to the top with aggregate, and when they come down that street, I mean, it rattles your kidneys. I mean, it's really amazing that anybody, and so the redevelopment of that main street and just the experience of the citizens of Ravenna and Queens, are challenged by this. And of course, there's some political intrigue layered over all of this stuff, which, is always the case with our local government partners. But, we'll see what this does, but I'm confident that with Bowler and Creighton Manning, that we'll come up with a solution that is the best one that can be come up with, so. So that concludes my presentation.
So there's one other update, and that is, if you'll remember last year, the county was quite generous in an allocation for arts and culture. We set up an advisory committee and then made recommendations, and this board voted on all of them. This year, there's significantly less money that's been allocated to arts and culture. That's an ongoing lobbying effort on the little committee's part in trying to talk with the county exec. But what the committee is doing is it's talked this through. They're sending out an RFP, just as they did last year. There'll be virtually no support for some of the larger organizations, arts and cultural organizations, because there isn't enough money. But they will look seriously at the people that applied last year to see if they needed an additional allocation to finish their project and add new opportunities. The group is disappointed there wasn't more resource to talk about, but enthusiastic about the fact that the county continues to support arts and culture. And quite frankly, we think that it's one of the few,
The only.
well, all right, the only support for arts and culture today is always hope. So we'll be back with this subject at a future meeting. Public comments.
Do we have anybody online? Anybody in the public here? Nobody in the public? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to request the board convene an executive session. There are some items that we would like to discuss regarding the conveyance of real estate, the public knowledge of which might have an effect on that value. So if the board would consider that, I'd appreciate it.
So without Tom Owens, to keep me honest, I believe we have to vote to end the meeting. Or
To
to
go into
go into executive session, okay. So, is there a motion to do so? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, I want to thank all of you who participated today. This is very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Thanks.